You're watching College Sports Rush's Sports Bettor's Paradise on the Bet Rivers Network.
All right, we're ready for the Final Four. It's our last college basketball podcast of the season. Jimmy Ott along with Paul Stone, and here we go. Number ones, again, just like when Kansas, North Carolina, UCLA, and Memphis, Derrick Rose, Calipari. Don't foul up three late. Well, it cost you. Mario Chalmers with the late three to put it into overtime. Some missed free throws along the way. That is, we've seen some national championships won or lost. You know, speaking of the Houston Cougars, they probably lost one because of their weak free throw shooting, and NC State won several games because their opponents could not knock down one-and-ones. Those were unlimited one-and-ones. We saw one-and-ones this past weekend as a 9-point lead was erased in a minute on a three, missed front end one-and-one, a three, a missed front end one-and-one, and a three, and bam, it's back to square one after. Boy, I thought McCaslin really coached the pants off of Kai Golden. I mean, it was what more could he do? He did not have the superior roster in this game, but one thing about it too, Mr. Clayton Jr. is Mr. Clutch. There's no question about that. Huff was a killer game as well. He hit the first two of those three threes to tie the game as well. Any final touches? Look back as it's a Ken Palm type of he's doing a victory dance somewhere. The analytics driven guy, it can be a little bit historical bias, but hey man, you got some of the strongest Ken Palm figures, and like Alabama, their metrics were not good defensively. You can't start playing defense in a tournament. Duke was a much better defensive team on Saturday. Paul, your thoughts looking back on this now that we've got all four number ones here?
Yeah, I know a lot of people are excited about it, and I certainly am to a degree. I mean, the quality of play will, potentially higher probability that it will be, higher. But, I'm a Cinderella guy. Obviously, this has been a tournament dominated by the favorites, and I think we're seeing the impact without question, at least partially, if not mostly, due to NIL. I tweeted yesterday about Robert Morris, a team that led Alabama in the second half in the first round of the tournament. And now their entire starting five in the transfer portal, the mid-majors, Cinderella has left the building and they're facing an uphill climb. So I like that component of the tournament. We really obviously didn't see any major upsets. I think the favorites, are they like straight up 61-3 or something like that?
Yes.
Some crazy number. So it's been dominated by the favorites, but we've got some great basketball teams, and all of them have a high level of offensive efficiency. So that's at least somewhat unique. There have been some years where a Cinderella or a team with, maybe not the greatest of offenses has gotten in, but these are all teams you can all make. I think you can make an argument for each of these four teams. You talked about Thomas Hawk for Florida. Man, that guy, he made some money this weekend, just a big-time player. Again, Florida could win it. Auburn's been number one most of the year. A lot of people would say Duke's the best team right now, and then Houston with Kelvin Sampson, and the way those guys defend every pass, every angle, slap out rebounds, all the little things. The Cougars are certainly in play as well. So we could have a great Final Four there in San Antonio this coming weekend.
Duke was installed. Well, they've been the favorite for quite some time since Auburn went on their little losing streak, losing 3 of 4 to end the season and end the SEC tournament against A&M. Against A&M, Alabama, and Tennessee. Duke right now at Bet Rivers minus 110. Got to lay money against the field. And, with Janai Broom's injury, and let's face it, he was injured. He came back in the game. He knocked down a 3. But that arm was just hanging down. He rebounded one with just his healthy arm. So that is a big deal as well. So let's get to the first game, the Florida-Auburn matchup, a rematch of that game where they went down in February. The Gators traveled to Auburn, Alabama, to the Plains to take on Alabama. Auburn was an 11-point favorite in that game and got out to a double-digit lead immediately, and in Florida just steamrolled them the rest of the way. This was the sort of the, okay, let's pay attention to Florida game. I mean, this was the really big one. No, but to do that at that place and that handily, we got to start paying attention to Florida a little bit closer. Now, look, we go back to this game on Saturday. Let's face it, they were fortunate. An 84% free throw shooter misses the front end of a 1-and-1, and then they miss another one. But they're also very clutch as well. So, and man, Huff he kept them in it, and then Clayton, got him over got him past. It was a two-man throw. I thought that these two for Florida, they kind of covered up for Golden, because I thought Golden really got outmatched on the bench. And we talked about some of the metrics. One of the metrics is, has a coach, what type of experience does this coach have? Does he have Sweet 16 experience? And he was the one of all the qualifiers, with the metrics, that didn't. This is 2 times now in this tournament. The UConn game, and then also the Texas Tech game, where the UConn game was 50-50 game. They got it. They won that coin, and they made the clutch shots. This one, some things had to fall their way to get over that hump late. Florida inserted as a 2.5-point favorite right now at Bet Rivers, 160.5. Paul, I think that is an overreaction with Janai Broom's injury right now. Broom is not going to be 100%. I don't think so, but he's going to be close enough. He's playing. I mean, he came back and played last night. He's playing in this game. He'll get as much treatment as he can, but he will not be 100%. But this is a team that has played a stretch of games without him, just like Duke had to play without Cooper Flagg, and they learned some things. The thing I really like about Auburn right now is their backcourt. I mean, Denver Ford and Jahan Pettiford, they are really, really something right now, and they are a special. Pettiford, man, I mean, a little Nick Van Exel, if you will. I mean, not the biggest guy, but listed as 6'1". Not sure if he's actually that well, but he's got it all: quickness, handles, and a shot. And he is just tough to deal with right now. Put on an absolute show in around the Sweet 16 as well. Florida has it all, but Paul, the thing that and Bruce Pearl doesn't get maybe as much credit with his bench coaching as maybe he should. I think this team, we talk about their defense and rebounding and their athleticism, but I think this team also does a lot of things offensively that really, make it easier for them. Maybe that most people don't appreciate. I think this is an overreaction by the odds makers again because of Broom's high-profile injury. I'm taking the Auburn Tigers in this win. I like the bench. I like the familiarity with Bruce Pearl being in his spot, although it was only one time, but he's been coaching a lot longer and gotten 3 different teams to the field of 64, 68 now. And I just think that this is we know about the age, a more mature team. Florida has been a little sloppy. I thought Florida was the better team entering this one. There was no doubt who was better in Nashville. I mean, they annihilated the competition. But they seem to go through these lapses against Auburn. Also, revenge spot. How much does that care? Everybody's trying. Everybody's keyed up. Everybody's focused. Everybody respects their opponent. I get that. But I do like the revenge spot in this situation. And I know Auburn is going to bring a lot of fans to that one. They are hungry. Something about when your big boy on campus is struggling, and their football team is, man, they got something to get behind. Bruce Pearl is the biggest source of enjoyment, excitement for that Auburn fan base. I'm taking a 2.5 in the Auburn Tigers against Florida.
Yeah, when I sat down, when this matchup was confirmed to make my number on the game, I was thinking Florida -1, Florida -1.5. Certainly those of us who do, power ratings and keep up with others who do power ratings, I think we all felt like Florida would be a very slim favorite, but I ultimately settled on -1. So like you, I think -2.5. I just think these books are getting hammered on these favorites, and they're going to make you, pay a little bit of a premium if you're going to back the favorite in these games. You pointed out the first meeting there on February 8th. Auburn comes in as an 11-point favorite, and Florida comes into town and takes care of them 90-81. Very impressive victory there. Florida, I think they've at times when they're clicking on all cylinders, I think they're as good as anybody in the country, even Duke. They've won 16 of their past 17 games. They've covered 13 of their past 17 games. And one of their non-covers, 4 non-covers in that 17-game stretch, was the 26-point victory over Norfolk State in their opening game of the NCAA tournament. We have 2 highly efficient offensive teams here. Florida ranks second in offensive efficiency according to Ken Palm. They average 85.4 points a game, which ranks third nationally in scoring. And an interesting tidbit that I uncovered looking at the point spread logs for these 2 teams, Florida's last 11 games, 11 straight games, have all gone over the total, which I find quite interesting. They've averaged just a tick under 90 points a game during that 11-game overstretch. Actually 89.9 points a game. So a lot of points there for Florida down the stretch. Auburn, obviously, very efficient offensively as well. They rank third in offensive efficiency according to Ken Palm. They average 83.2 points a game on the season. So there could be plenty of fireworks there in the Alamo Dome on Saturday. Interesting also, Auburn has played the other 3 Final Four teams this season. Other than the 9-point home loss that we've talked about to Florida back in mid-February, they were a 5.5-point underdog to Houston in the second game of the season for both teams, sort of a quasi-home game for the Cougars there at the Toyota Center in Houston. They defeated Houston 74-69, and then in early December, as part of the SEC-ACC Challenge, they traveled to Cameron Indoor Stadium in Durham, North Carolina to play Duke. They were getting 3.5 points from the Blue Devils, lost that game to Duke 84-78. So they've played all the other competitors in this field. Like you, first of all, I suspect Auburn's going to have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, if you will, because they're the number 1 seed, the number 1 overall seed. And even though I understand they were probably going to be the betting underdog, they don't feel that way. So they probably feel slighted in that regard. And I also think it's a little bit of an advantage, the fact, as you alluded to, that they lost on their home floor. Not only lost, but lost on their home floor to this same Florida team. Not a huge issue, but I think it plays a little bit of a role. And again, the favorites are just getting hammered. The favorites are dominating. I think you got to pay a premium to play these favorites. So I'm like you. I'm going to go as well with Auburn plus 2.5 over Florida.
Even after just cleaning up the first 2 days of the NCAA tournament, the books are starting to cry a little bit as far as, these moneyline parlays, because I know a lot of dog or pass bettors that have flipped to moneyline parlays as well. We know the recreational players are playing that, so it is really flipped. That number you're talking about, 62-3, that's with teams that are favored by 6 or more straight up, and that goes back to the Big Four, the Power Four in the conference tournaments as well. Okay. So, some of my advice I gave out on my radio show, going to conference tournament, this is not the time to play money line parlays. Oh, well, it kind of was. So, and it's carried through the NCAA tournament as well. And that's where we are. This is what we have. But, hey, don't make it, don't just say that this is, Cinderella is tough, in a tough spot. You talked about Robert Morris, but even on the football side, our favorite stat is the Sun Belt Conference all-conference team, 22 for 22 entered the transfer portal. So you and who could blame you? You want to spend the remainder of your college career at the Howard Johnsons or the Ritz-Carlton. So it's a little bit, and make a little bit more money on the front end as well. Duke 4.5, 136.5. Duke was super impressive on Saturday night, and so was Houston after escaping. Got the push off, wasn't called right before. And once upon a time, Paul, everybody under their own goal used to play zone defense, especially with just a few seconds on the clock. Well, not the case not the case for anybody. Very few teams do that. But that you got zone defense, you're not giving up a layup to win the game. Duke, and I have to say this, Duke is privileged in a lot of ways, and John Shire has a lot of advantages a lot of other people don't. He's got the best branding. You don't even have to look at the TV schedule. You know who's going to be on prime time. It's going to be the Duke Blue Devils. Immediately. And And the thing about it is, he is doing a heck of a job, though. I mean, I thought he had a great trip. First of all, with his roster building. Okay, you got that branding, and you can get the guys like Cooper Flagg and the kid that just committed to Duke for next year's class, who might be the number one player, one of the top players in college basketball. But let's go back to last year. A guy like Tyrese Proctor, where they got beat, and he did not have a good day in the regional final against NC State. NC State put it on them. There's enough. But Tyrese Proctor for Sydney, Australia, the 6'6" shooter, he went 0 for 9 from the field. This is a low to mid 30% 3-point shooter. He's there, and he might transfer out. No, he stays with him. He works on his game in the offseason. He improved his 3-point shooting. And in the tournament, he's shooting a cool 25 of 37 for 68% in these 4 games. He has been money. The other thing, when you're going to go in the transfer portal to complement, this is something that Calipari just could not figure out while he was at Kentucky. But let's go to the hotbed, that blue blood of basketball, Tulane Green Wave. And let's get Zion James to bring. All right. One thing about Duke, what can we say about some of the Duke teams in the past? You can bully them, huh? You can bully them, get on there. You need a big body guy, a physical guy. We need a role. We've got enough stars. We've got enough firepower on this team. He's starting for this team out of Tulane. Who could have predicted that? But he knew exactly what was best. It's sort of like going for white instead of brown on the Olympic team. That's what they needed on that team. Got enough stars. Got enough firepower. And then Shire, knowing where Sears was at every second of the game. The whole team knew where they were. They're switching. That's also part of their plan, where they switch a lot because they have so many guys with equal sort of a physical makeup, athleticism and size. I'm just really, really impressed with John Shire, because this could have been, and in some ways, how many times can we go back and say, Coach K just out-coached the opposition and won with an inferior roster? I'm impressed with John Shire. It's one thing to have a guy like Cooper Flagg, who's so beyond his years as far as basketball IQ, who makes everybody around him better. The automatic, he doesn't have to make one decision before he's got the magnet effect. Everybody has less pressure on him. But how many times does he go down and he said, man, that wasn't the right decision? It seems like he makes the right decision every time. This is a hard team to pull against. It's a bet against right now. And guess what? Nobody's doing it. So the public is just flooding over and over. And as long as they're getting positive reinforcement and winning and getting paid, well, there you go. But here comes Houston. If you're going to get bullied, and this is where the whistle is going to be very, very important. Mostly in this tournament, they have let them play. Now, Duke against Alabama, you want if you're a Duke fan, you want a completely different whistle than you want Duke and Houston. They let them play. If the same officials or the same games officiated like Tennessee and Houston, where Tennessee is a rugged team and sort of a bully of the SEC, they got bullied on Sunday. Houston was just really much, much better at it. And for the first time, the Houston Cougars have some firepower as themselves. All 3 guards shoot over 40% from 3. Now, they don't shoot. They're not volume shooters. They're not Alabama by any stretch. But when it got a little bit tight as Tennessee crept back, bam, bam, bam. The guard made back-to-back 3-pointers. You can live with a day like on Friday when Cryer had an off night, a really bad night, and they still won the game against Purdue. All this being said, Paul, I think you're being a contrarian here. So it's funny because I thought we went to Ohio State and Texas, and you're like, it's the chalk, it's right. But I'm not getting in the way of this runaway train. You're different opinion here. I'm curious why you like the Cougars plus the 4.5, 136.5 as a total against this red-hot Duke team.
Yeah, first of all, like you, Jimmy, I just respect the heck out of the job that John Shire's done there at Duke. When he gets promoted from longtime assistant under Mike Krzyzewski to the head coach, that is a hire that maybe is going to draw a certain level of scrutiny. Should they have done a nationwide search instead of simply promoting the assistant and the former favorite son? And it's turned out outstanding. And you mentioned Cooper Flagg. I mean, this guy is an incredible talent. For him to be a year ahead of his class and to have just turned 18 during his freshman year in college as a big guy, I think that's a much easier, not that it would be easy task to pull off, but as a big guy, that's even more difficult because of the physical maturation process. But he doesn't look like a guy who should be a high school senior to me at this point. I mean, he's a dominant player. And there's a lot of people, and perhaps yourself included, and I can't argue with it, that would contend Duke is the most complete team in college basketball. They've reeled off 15 straight victories, all but 3 of those 15 straight victories by double digits. And in its 4 NCAA tournament wins, only 1 has been by fewer than 20 points. Of course, that 100-93 victory over Arizona in the Sweet 16 round. They handled Alabama. Alabama had that historic 3-point shooting night against BYU coming off that game where they hit 25 of 51 three-pointers. But Duke was a different story. Against BYU, it seemed like Alabama just had target practice. BYU wasn't really defending the 3-point line.
A little different level of defensive. There's no doubt.
Level, and not only are these guys defending the 3-point line, but they're defending it with big players, big guards, with length and with arms, and they made it very, very difficult. Mark Sears did not have quite the same type of easy shots or easier shots that he had against BYU. So just a tremendous coaching job there. The Tide just 8 of 32 from beyond the arc against Duke. But as good as Shire is as a bench coach at this early stage in his head coaching career, I'm not sure that there's a better coach over the last 5 years, 8 years, whatever, in college basketball than Kelvin Sampson. I mean, this guy gets his guys. He talks about his culture, and I think you got to be able to take a little bit of a punch to play, not literally, figuratively, to play for Kelvin Sampson. I mean, he's a high demand coach. They play a certain way, but just to look at the Cougars, they defend every pass. They take every angle. They slap those rebounds out. They're on the floor. I mean, it's not just one player or 2 players. It's every player. They play like that at every position. Certainly Duke is the more highly skilled team. You look at Houston. Obviously, they've been very good the last several years, but this is only the second time in the last 3 years that they've been the betting underdog. And ironically, one of those times was this season at Kansas. They actually closed as a 1-point underdog to the Jayhawks. But I'm going to take the points here. Right now, it's 4.5. This is a Houston team. I think it plays a little bit of a role. Like you said, everybody's all in. You're playing for you're 2 victories away from a national championship, so nobody's coming up, flat and missing curfew and that type of thing. But Houston did lose last year. They were eliminated, as you know, by Duke in the Sweet 16 round, lost 54-51, and they lost their All-America point guard, Jamal Shedd, with about 6.5 minutes left in the first half to a right ankle injury. So they've got to be thinking about what could have been. I'm certain that Coach Sampson is emphasizing that. And the difference in this Houston team from past teams, they've always been scrappy. They've always been push you and shove you and play really, really physical. But they hadn't been a great offensive team. They hadn't had good, probably above average outside shooting. But as you've already pointed out, they certainly have that this year. They've got 3 guys, like you said, that shoot over 40%. L.J. Cryer and Emmanuel Sharp, 42% three-point shooters. And then Milos Uzan, 44.5% from three-point territory. So they have some shooters now, and that gives them a little bit different little weapon in their toolbox there. Duke, they rank pretty good in defending the three-pointer. They give up 31% of three-pointers, while Houston, right there at the national lead, hitting 40% of their three-pointers as a team. And again, I just think Houston's going to keep it close. I think they're going to fight, scratch, and claw, and they're going to try to, like you said, the whistle. I think they're hoping for a physical game where they can see what the limits are and kind of push up against those limits because they do like to play physical. I like Houston. I wouldn't take it right now. I think it's going to tick up to 5. maybe not market wide, but I think some shops are going to get up to 5 at some point. I'd wait on the 5 and take the 5 with Houston.
Yeah, 3 of them, Cryer, Sharp, and Uzan. I mean, all of them have kind of taken turns when they're right. It was Sharp on Sunday against Tennessee when Tennessee kind of got within striking range. It was Uzan. It was 6 of 9 against Purdue. He also had a big game in the tournament final against Arizona in the Big 12 tournament final. It was Cryer against Iowa State when Iowa State took the lead, in Houston. So they could afford 2 of the 3 to be off, but rarely have you seen all 3 of them be off. As opposed to Shed in the past, okay, he's our one, go ahead, create. I mean, it was, they really didn't have a whole lot of scoring options. And so here you go, the number 1 offensive efficiency team in the country against the number 1 defensive efficiency team in the country. But I think the real thing is on the other side. Duke's defense, did they play like against Arizona? It was, not so great, 93 points. Or the one that played against Alabama, where everybody was on the same page, and they held the highest scoring team in the country to their second lowest point performance of the year. Or is it Houston's offense and how they do on that side as well? Paul, I've enjoyed it. Good job this year. Certainly, you pick up my slack. There's no doubt about that. So we enjoyed it. Hopefully, we'll have a couple of winners for you this weekend as well. And hopefully you enjoyed whether it's straight out picks, angles, or information. For Paul Stone, I'm Jimmy Ott, closing out this college basketball season on the Sports Bettor's Paradise on the Bet Rivers Network.
Thanks for watching College Sports Rushes, Sports Bettor's Paradise on the Bet Rivers Network.